Greetings. This is Elia Eternal, and you're joining us for another episode of 1320 Time Stream. This is the harmonic editions. So, it's been an interesting run so far. We're in Throat Chakra energy. We are entering the fourth harmonic today. And yeah, there's a lot of really evolutionary stuff going on. So we've done a lot of intros before, so we won't really be explaining the mechanics as much here. But as you can see, the wheel in front of you kind of shows the different kind of system mechanics that this part of the transmissions will be kind of covering. And you have our, I Ching energy, our DNA hexagrams, which is comprised of the 8 trigrams. We have our tone energy, which is comprised of the 13 galactic tones. And we have our 20 solar seals energy, which is comprised here by the 20 solar seals. And we also have the kind of 4/5 directional energy, which is, held space for by the red, white, blue, and yellow in the center, and also the reflection of that on the seals, and the Hunab Ku in the middle, kind of representing the center. And so, yeah, let's get into it here. So, basic Tzolk'in. And what are we today here? Well, we are the self-existing Skywalker, which is kin 173. We're on the 9th run, which is 2 over from the center column. And it's tone 4. So you'll see 4 dots, also the number 173, and it's on a green square. That's the day that we're on right now. There's going to be another video to watch out for on the daily energy, which will describe this a little more in depth. Here is really where the harmonic additions transmissions kind of come in. This is how we align them. And so again, if you start in that central column, go into that yellow pathway, that yellow kind of like 4-bar line. What I mean by 4 bars is it takes up essentially 4 days or 4 units. Now 4 units or 4 days is a harmonic. So each one of those number sections is one of the harmonics. So we're going to be starting on the yellow section in the center, going over 2. Okay, it's harmonic 44 or codon 53, also gene key number 53. The codon that is present here, yin, yin, yang, yin, yang, yang. We're in the output time cell, which is the yellow time cell. Okay. So just to go into this a little bit, just some of the things that I've seen in this wave. This is an interesting wave, I find with people, everything's really easy up to the heart chakra wave. Everything before the throat chakra is really easy because ultimately, as an individual, any of these energies are easy to cultivate. They're personal energies and they can be cultivated as an individual. And those energies can be balanced in the individual's life. Now, once we start getting to the throat chakra and higher energies, we start moving into collective and intergalactic consciousness. So it's simply not enough to be in your own individual self with your own individual beliefs and your own individual ideas and desires. Those have to start dissolving, or you are going to form blockages that are going to be very readily making you need to look at them. Now these take on a very different number of forms, from pains in the body to glitches to, a lot of it's actually just pain in the body, to be honest. I've seen so many cases of this in my life, especially around the throat chakra. Stuff happening in the thyroids, the throat, in the neck, in the base of the skull. As the energy begins to move, as that sexual energy really begins to become unlocked, and we allow it to move up the spine and opening all those chakras all the way up, as we begin to kind of saturate or like liquefy the throat chakra energy with this sexual energy, a lot of our core beliefs in reality are going to be challenged. A lot of our programming is going to be challenged because we are naturally a symbiotic force. We are naturally a collective consciousness. And we have really dumbed ourselves down. We've really kind of like limited or calcified our ability to feel these networks of energy, these biological symbiotic networks of subtle, energetic, telepathic, emotional, empathic heart communication. The thing that just feels like coming up, at this time. And it's interesting because there's lots of pictures about like, divine beings, especially in the Bible, where they have this kind of halo. And it's kind of like this circle that's coming around from like the back of their neck over the head. And everyone's like, well, that's the halo, that's the crown chakra. I would actually say that no, it's actually not a halo. It's not a crown chakra. It's actually emerging from the back of their throat. And so that sphere is actually a representative of the spherical or collective fifth dimensional consciousness that these divine beings are in, which is to say, they're communicating to a vast network of intelligence, and they're communicating to each other within this spherical fifth dimensional collective field of direct vibration, of direct transmission, and direct experience. And so as we start getting into this level of consciousness, especially when we're following and utilizing these tools, we start activating at like a hyper rate. Now, it's very natural to want to go at our own pace, and that's very empowered. Though there comes a time when we start to unlock things in ourselves, when that must be the most important thing. When the trials and tribulations of life that seem to consistently take our attention and make us believe that other things are important, those aren't important anymore, and we have to be able to make that decision. We have to be able to look at ourselves on the inside and say, hey, I need to focus on my evolution because the signs are showing me. And once we start getting to, this fifth dimensional energy, once we start getting to like the Elven heart and higher, Elven heart was the last 20 run, or the 6th, and higher, we need to start really thinking about claiming our sovereignty on how we sustain ourselves as a force which is no longer bound by this artificial cycles, the cycles which vie for our energy and take us away from nature. Because our suffering can be increased greatly because of how we resist the flow of our energy. Once we start turning things on, you can't really turn things off. Once you begin knowing things, you can't unknow them. So as you begin taking responsibility, you have to keep traveling on that path. And this requires you to really shift around your life and world priorities. I know it may be hard. I know there may be core values and fears which really supplant the values of which I'm sharing and the values of which I'm experiencing with you, or that you're experiencing in these ways. But I assure you, they are paramount and more important than pretty much everything. Even though the survival mentality of, how do I survive? If I got to go to work every day, I got to do this. No, you really don't. Take the leap. If you look into yourself, there will be something in life that is balanced for you, and it isn't just working a 9-to-5 job. It really isn't. There may be many people who are very, don't want to hear what I say in this way, or may even be angry at me for suggesting such a thing, because people are so invested in that false time calendar and all of the system that it supports, and kind of like manipulates us into embodying kind of against our full sovereign choice of will. But this voice needs to be heard. It can't be buried anymore. This voice is a scream from the soul of consciousness, from the soul of Mother Earth, from the soul of your immortal soul, to be free from these shackles and this bondage that binds you. It binds all of us. We are a highly intelligent universal being whose capacity is limitless, yet we indulge so deeply in limitation and suffering. Ask yourself why. Truly, ask yourself, why do you do this? And if you don't do this, then just be on your path. In fact, all of you just be on your path. I'm not saying this to judge. I'm saying this so that there is an extra value, an opportunity to cultivate an extra value around this questioning, to question ourselves, to go deeper into what we're doing, to go deeper into our state of evolution, to take further responsibility for our energy and our journey. If we began moving that journey, we can't just stop 3/4 of the way or like 3/5 of the way. It doesn't stop there. And as much as there's a natural progression, sometimes we got to choose to move things along. It's not all just going to happen by itself. You're not just going to sit there and evolve, right? There has to be some personal level of effort and alignment put into these things. Now, as much as evolution is a natural process, I feel I have to really kind of bolster or create a foundation around this. I feel a very prevailing consciousness in the world, in the spiritual communities, in a lot of the divine feminine movement. And there's this allowing energy, which is paramount to everything. There's this surrender energy. Now, I feel a lot of that is getting translated a little bit backwards, in that this, like, allow and surrender really comes down to, oh, just let it all happen, which kind of translates out into a physical thing, like, I don't have to do anything. It's just going to happen. I would say that's kind of just indulging in your laziness. We always have to do something. And as we kind of show up for ourselves, surrendering looks very different. Surrendering, I find, looks simply like getting out of your own way so the world can synchronize. That may look like, say you got some tough information to share. The surrendering isn't just like, oh, let go, don't feel that way and just like let it dissolve. It's like, well, maybe surrendering is not indulging in your fears and letting someone else know how you feel, right? Allowing the energies that are present within you move. Stop trying to limit them. Maybe you're trying to do something in life, but you have cultural or family or friend expectations limiting your ability to choose in a free way. That surrender can take the place of just let that go and make the choice because you have to. And just like swim in the upheaval after, the crumbled buildings and the cataclysmic effect, because you have to. Because that's just simply the chunky energy that's stored up in there, and that cataclysm that you're avoiding is necessary. And if you don't choose to do it, eventually some destructive force will come into your life and do it to you. That's simply unavoidable. If we're out of balance or out of sync, then these kind of little disastrous events will actually happen. I have seen it throughout my life, time and time again, when people confuse their path with the choices of others and the choices of our culture and the expectations and things placed upon them. If something isn't truly your decision, it will resonate. And if there's any form of expectation, like rent, or if there's any form of consequence-based inspiration, it's not your choice. It's someone else's choice that's influencing you, even at the most subtle 0.01%. As we choose our sovereignty, as we claim our sovereignty, nothing can pressure us into making any choice. We must abandon all systems which intend to recruit our intention, our will, that attempt to hijack and steal that and claim our sovereignty. Yes, it's a hard path, but you're ready. And you are supported by all the other beings who are participating in this world transformation. This particular throat chakra run really begins to represent that energy. And I encourage you, within the surrender, within the allowance, within the delicateness, to take this seriously. I think a last analogy that, I'll share with you around this. Now, when I say serious, I don't mean stress yourself out. You see, this is what we're letting go, right? It's about coming into the eyes of that which you fear and allowing that fear to dissolve, coming into your heart. We have to face that resistance energy. We have to go into that quivering, terrified little child that we all hide from in ourselves. That's where we gain our power. That's where we gain our power of heart. When we confront those things and we allow our energy to return to our heart, when we witness ourselves change through the myriad of experiences and inner forms, especially the ones we judge, especially the ones we hide from. One of the ways I see it is like a peaceful being, very peaceful, maybe a monk, maybe just a wanderer, would never lift a finger to hurt anyone. But this person is attacked or mugged in the forest. This person just happens to know some skills. Maybe they're art with a sword or, martial arts. It doesn't matter. But do they want to in any way, shape, or form hurt this other person? No, they don't. That's not who they are. And maybe they're gripped with terror at this aspect. They're feeling very disempowered. But they have a choice. They either get killed or they fight back. Right? They make that choice. And so where I'm going with that is the surrender aspect in it is, even though there is insurmounting odds, there is a way to drop in to the natural well-being in one's soul and let that guide you in a situation. Not everything is necessarily a fight analogy, though I feel it's important to note when dealing with our conflicts, when dealing with the things that block us, when there's boundaries or hindrances, yes, there is an inherent conflict. And I feel that explaining and describing these situations, not as a drunken brawl, but as a disciplined warrior, as a person who has calmness, as a person who has peace in their hearts and knows how to wield their faculty and can be in control of themselves in a situation like this. Even if it's being calm under the sheer uncomfortableness of the nature of one's experience, this shows up differently for everyone else. Everyone, just everyone. Yeah, so I feel it's a good message to really come into the throat chakra vibration. We're on the 4th harmonic. And for all of those of you who may be deeply challenged in this run, I just want to give you that. This isn't necessarily for everyone. Everyone's at different phases of their own personal evolution and their collective evolution. For a lot of the people who are working in communities and groups and people who participate in doing a lot of those collective things, a lot of those cultivations, and there's I can't name them all. I've seen so many beautiful communities out there who really exemplify a natural, sustainable collective consciousness and really help each other through it. Community is key. We're no longer a time of lone wolves. We're no longer a time of being alone. And I inspire the people who are alone and like to make the excuses about, oh yeah, well, I'm just doing my thing or whatever. Well, I encourage you to get out of your lonely road. I encourage you to bring in more people into your life so as to share in the different reflections, so as to allow yourself to grow with more people in your life. Those things that are hindering you will be brought up and you'll be forced to let them go. And this is of critical importance right now. So let me empower you in a good way, as a wayshower and a supporter, as a guide and as a fellow traveler. Much love to all of you, deeply, unendingly, and eternally so. Let's get on with the Gene Keys transmission, which is the 4th harmonic. We're going to be getting into harmonic 44, which will be codon or Gene Key 53. Well, stay tuned. That's coming up next.